Keep it moving. All right, so we're entering into session 3. And just so you know, I printed these wrong. You probably have already realized that. Usually when they print a piece of paper, they print it here, and then you can just turn it here, and it's like this. But as you can tell, it's upside down. So as we transition, right, to session 3, and you get to it, instead of doing it this way, you can do it stylish and do it that way. All right? So that's how stylish. You just take it from the bottom, flip it up. Take it from the bottom, flip it up. Look at it. All right. So we're talking about overcoming offense with humility. Humility is the secret sauce. Humility is the way. And we'll probably talk about offense again at some point. There's so much that you can dive into with offense, but this is just like a brief we're just touching on it for right now, because I think it's important for us to have conversations on this. So the Bible passage that we're looking at is going to be in Philippians chapter 2, verse 1 through 4. And it says, "Therefore, if there is any consolation in Christ, if any comfort of love, if any fellowship of the Spirit, if any affection and mercy, fulfill my joy by being like-minded, having the same love, being of one accord, of one mind. Let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem others better than himself. Let each of you look out not only for his own interests, but also look out for the interests of others." Is a very, very beautiful verse. It kind of gives us a little bit of a guiding post to, okay, so when I do feel this offense pop up, or when I do feel, and for those of you that deal with any level of anxiety, when you get offended and you feel like you're like the anxious type, or you feel like a little anxious or anxiety, you can feel the flood of assumptions hit you like a wave. Like you can feel all the assumptions just in your head almost at the same time. Like you get a full profile of the individual that just offended you, or the situation that offended you, and you're like, boom, this is what they think about me. This is what they look like and feel like. This is what they're thinking. This is probably how they were raised and grew up, and this is why they think this and this about me. And not one conversation was had. It's just like, boom, full throttle. So I'm saying this to say, when this big wall jumps at you, whether it's just kind of something that creeps on you, because for some people, offense creeps up because situation happened. You're like, cool, whatever, you move on. But you slowly start to think about it throughout the day. You think about it the next day, and it almost is like a snowball that at first was this big, and then before you know, it's like this huge avalanche, and you're like, that person is doing this, right? And it took a couple days to get there. For some of us, me, right, like I can get there in 3 seconds, right? Have a conversation, boom, I'm there, full throttle. What did you, right? And so it can hit us in various ways, but how do we respond when that flood hits us, or when we feel the peak of offense? Like how do we handle it when we're at home and we feel it rising, or we feel it hit us at once? Or what do we do when we're at church and we see the person and we had the conversation? It's like, when it hits us at once, how do we navigate it? I feel like one of the very first things, and again, this is under the umbrella of humility, one of the very first things that we need to kind of almost shift our mindset to is instead of the pride and the self and selfishness and ambition and motives and trying to assume, it's like we transition into the space of, and it's this one word that I really love, curiosity. Curiosity is so beautiful. Like I love, like it has been one of the most precious gifts that I feel like God has given to us. Curiosity, and curiosity is the sense of, and this is the best way I know how to explain it, but curiosity is like the sense of, I don't know, but I want to know. I don't understand, but I kind of want to understand, right? Like curiosity is like almost like, it's like the breadcrumbs that get left and somebody's like, oh, I don't know why you're picking breadcrumbs off the ground. But maybe it's like a dollar left on the floor, like, ooh, like $1 on the floor, and maybe there's another one over there. Hey, I'm curious as to, if there's more around the corner, or if somebody dropped this around the corner, or if, where this all leads to, right? Like this curiosity where it's like, I don't have the full picture, but I'm down to search for this full picture. And so what I'm saying is when an offense happens, sometimes, right, like it jumps up at us and we think of it as a sign to, this is the time when I can make assumptions. Well, assumptions is the opposite of curiosity, right? Like curiosity says I don't know. Assumption says like I do kind of know. I think, right? Curiosity says, no, there's something else here. Assumptions say like, no, I have everything that I need here. And so instead of like leaning into, I know it's because of this, I feel that's the reason, leaning into, wait, I don't really know. There might be more to this scene. There might be more to this person. There might be more to the situation and circumstance that I don't know. And this is what I love, especially because we serve a God who works all things out for our good. A God who's capable of orchestrating all things out for our good. I almost sense that this gives us more permission to lead into the curiosity. Like, even if we feel like this group of people is malice, they're evil. And I know it because I've seen them sin before. Right? I've seen it. I've seen the way they communicate. I've seen the way they talk. They're evil, right? Okay, sure. Even if that was true, do you believe that God is doing something?
He wants to.
He wants to, right? Like, he wants to be doing something. But can you imagine, this is an example, like Jesus, right? Like Jesus going through the cross. He's surrounded by evil folks doing stuff to him. But was God doing something in the midst of all that?
For sure.
Like, yeah, God was saving the world in the midst of probably the most evil scene that the universe has ever witnessed. God's like, yeah, no, I'm here doing something. And so what I'm saying is like, so the beauty, like the thing that I feel like gives us permission to be curious is God's sovereignty. Like God's ability to work all things out for our good. I know the plans I have for you, that even though you're going into captivity, right? Like even though you're going into the thick of it, I got a plan for you, right? That's what gives us this permission, almost this confidence to say, oh, okay, let me enter into curiosity. Let me not make assumptions. Let me enter into curiosity. Humility also invites those that you lead to share more of themselves. Humility invites those that you lead to share more of themselves. And so when I choose to enter into curiosity, it actually allows people to feel safe. And if people don't feel safe around you, you ain't gonna lead them.
No, you're not.
You ain't gonna lead them, right? And this is just, it's a thought, something to chew on, right? Like this idea of being a shepherd, right? This idea of shepherding, right? Pastoral ministry, right? Shepherding. Like we're all really shepherds, right? We all have different flocks, right? Like I may be here and I may have like title pastor, First Adventist Church here. Yep, Samson. But the truth is, like, we all have different, like, at your workspace, you got a flock. Like, your family, it's a flock, right? Like, you have these different flocks in these various spaces that you are essentially a shepherd. And if your sheep don't feel safe, if they feel like, no, I don't want to go to that person because they're going to think this. You know what that is? I don't want to go to that person because they're just going to make assumptions about me. They're just going to be offended by anything I say. Can you imagine? Or could you imagine on the flip side, like, okay, I'm going to lean into more curiosity. Then a person can feel safe because, like, no, this person wants to know what's going on. That's completely different. Like, this person's open. They're not gonna like shoot me down. They're not gonna shut me down. It leads a person to share more of themselves. And if they're sharing more of themselves, then you have more I'm trying to figure out the word, but you have more like investment in them. Like you have more sway in their ability, in their belief of themselves and the belief of your capability to lead them. You have more invested in that person. That person's more willing to essentially allow you to lead them. But if you enter into assumption land, it makes that so much more hard and so much more difficult. And so pride tends to give answers, often wrong, right? Like offense tends to give answers, right? Because assumptions is essentially trying to give an answer that are often wrong because we don't actually see the full picture. But humility, curiosity, it asks questions. And so this is something that I came to realize, and it kind of hit me a little bit, but it's this whole idea of when you see God on the scene of like some crazy situations, God always shows up on the scene asking questions. Isn't that weird? I used to think that was weird. Like God come on the scene, yo, Adam, where you at? Like he didn't know where Adam was at. Like Cain, hey, where did you bury Abel? Like he couldn't find Abel. Like he was lost in the ground somewhere, and Cain just like dug a hole and threw Abel in there when God wasn't looking. He had his back turned. Like, what? No, I don't know, right? That's not the case at all. Like God knows it. So why does he ask questions? Because questions is an invitation to relationship. It's the opposite of assumptions. If anybody in the world can make assumptions, it's God. Like, and be accurate about his assumptions, it's God. He's the only one that's like, this is what's going on, and he's accurate. But what happens when God comes on the scene and says, hey, Adam, where are you? He's giving Adam an opportunity to reveal himself. If he's like, Adam, come out from the bushes. I see you over there, your legs sticking out, right? Like Adam in this situation is caught. He ain't do that well with hide and seek, right? He's caught. But with God coming on the scene and saying, hey, Adam, where are you? It gives Adam an opportunity to reflect and think, you know what? Let me reveal myself, which opens up. And so questions, so long story short, this question thing is so beautiful because it allows people to reveal themselves. It allows people to open up. It allows people to feel like it's safe enough to come out. It allows people. And so asking questions, I came to realize, is a big, and not asking questions with the attitude like you know the answer, right? Like, were you outside playing? Right? Like, okay, whoa. Like, I feel like you just think I was outside playing and you're trying to be nice right now. Like, that's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to like a safe, curious, I just want to know, right? And it's so beautiful when you start to enter in space to be like, hey, help me understand. Help me understand. Tell me more. Explain to me what's going on. And at some point, I do want to do a whole segment or a whole focus on just listening. I want to do a whole focus where we're just listening, just asking questions, because I really think that this is one of the best things to handling offense. It's coming to realize, there's something going on in this person. Like, just to give you an example, right? And this is not a true story. I'm going to go to church because if I go home too much, you guys are going to be like, yo, what's going on at the pastor's house? It's good. No, but so I'll imagine for a second, right? Like I'm up there preach a sermon. I get off. I'm like, okay, praise God. Just went off in the message. And somebody comes up to me and says, Pastor, that was the most horrible sermon I've ever heard in my life. Talk about a time to be offended. Listen, you don't understand. This brother works all week to develop sermons. I do this every single week. Fears of going on stage is like number 1 or 2 or somewhere next to death. So the fact that I'm even up there, you're going to tell me it's the most horrible you ever heard? I could be offended, obviously, right? In a situation like that, I could be offended. But like, imagine for a second you come off and somebody comes at you like, yo, this is the worst sermon that I've ever heard in my entire life. And instead of me like thinking like, I worked hard for this. That was one of my good ones. Instead of doing that, I just pause for a second. I'm just thinking like, what I want you to think for a second, what could go on in a person's life that could make them, one, say that to a person, first of all, even if it was the most horrible. Even if I just got up there and just was like, yo, I don't know what I'm doing, sorry, y'all, like, fumble through papers, whatever, that makes it the horrible one. Even if that's the case, what makes a person say that? One. Two, what did you get from, like, what part of the sermon hit you so hard that this is like the worst? Like, there had to be something in the sermon that triggered something on the inside of you that help me understand. And so and I'm just doing this like with y'all. I'm just like trying to process through it. But that's curiosity. Right? Where now I'm asking questions. Like, I'm like, hey, help me understand, why was this the worst one? Like, what happened? Like, well, when you said, when you were talking about the story with your mom and your dad. A story with my mom and my dad? Like